Hello, my name is Paul Daniele. I am the Executive Director of the Rural Growth Initiative, a nonprofit based out of Columbia, South Carolina. Our mission is to put rural communities on a path to sustainable growth while preserving character and culture. This episode was recorded on Monday, February 3rd, 2025 at the Riparian on Black Creek in Hartsville, South Carolina. In this presentation, we'll explore how small towns can regain population, bring families back, and thrive once again, thanks in part to the opportunities remote work now provides. The future of rural America is now full of possibility.
Thank you, everyone, for your patience while we got things set up here in the room. First of all, I just want to say a huge thank you to the esteemed Curtis Lee for hosting us here. And this is not the first event that's been hosted here. And I do want to share a little bit about Curtis and my relationship with Curtis. But first, I wanted to say my name's Paul Daniele. It's really a pleasure for all of you to I've gotten to know all of you. Most of you here are actually friends in some way or another, have given me advice over the years. And I just want to give an example. As a new resident of South Carolina, we moved here in the November of 2021. And I had just left my corporate job and I had just driven down from DC. I'm born and raised in Virginia, but lived in, lived all throughout Virginia, but worked in DC for quite a long time in an economic development role. And one of the first people who kind of opened their door for me in the whole economic development space was Daniel, the town city manager. Sorry, we have a town manager here too as well, but the city manager of Hartsville. And that led to Curtis, who really, he and I have partnered up. And what this place is supposed to be, and Curtis shared this with me a couple years ago, our founding fathers used to find places to come and congregate and meet. And nowadays, there's not very many places like that, places that are open where people can come, share ideas, convey. There's small coffee shops, there's bars, right? There's restaurants, and there's people's homes. But in this case, this is actually a private facility really dedicated to bringing people together to share ideas and come up with solutions to problems and challenges. And so it's really honored to be here, Curtis. Thank you for your personal investment in creating a place like this. So go ahead and share the screen so everyone online can see it. All right. I do ask that all of our online participants, I think there's a number of online participants. I do ask that you remain muted, and that if we're gonna take questions from online, because there are quite a number of people online, I'd ask that you just pop them into the chat as you have questions. So that would be much appreciated. But again, thank you all for coming, and thank you to those of you who are joining us online. What we're going to talk about today is now we're having technical difficulties with my clicker. So give me 1 second. First of all, real quick, this is not just a presentation on what our nonprofit does. The nonprofit was established a couple years ago, 2 years ago to be precise, with the goal of really working in rural communities to tackle the toughest issues. And that's what the Rural Growth Initiative is all about. If I were to sum up why we exist, it's this. This is the population decline map from 2010 to 2018. And a lot of our work actually is here in this area, in Appalachia. We've got a team on the ground that's working in Harlan County. We did some work in McCreary County, which is just to the west of Harlan. And of course, South Carolina, right along 95 corridor. You all are familiar with that. Let's zoom in a little bit on South Carolina and the population decline from 2010 to 2025. I do want to throw a grain of salt in here. We're all aware of issues with the census and how that ended up in the numbers. But I do want to just make a statement here that even if the census and the Office of Revenue and Fiscal Affairs is off by 50%, 15% decline, a 21% decline projected for Lee County, 15% decline projected or that they experienced since 2010. Even if they're off by 50%, that's massive, and it has a tremendous impact on these communities. And that's, I think, where the heart of our nonprofit comes. And we're from all over. So we're from Kentucky, we're from Virginia, we're from South Carolina. There's a whole bunch of us that have kind of come together, and those are our advisory board members. This is the projections, and again, same caveat, right? Even if these are off by a wide margin, this is a bad omen for the whole region. And what better than to come together and fight back? And what do I mean by fight? It means come up with plans, come up with strategies, innovate, change the way we look at things, change the way we look at data, change the way we look at opportunity. And that's kind of why we're here today, to start having some conversations. I want to caveat that what we're showing you today is fresh off the presses. We just started our pilot like mid-December, piloted for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then are coming back to you with results that quickly. And that's the way we want to work. There's no reason to delay. Why? Because this is what happens when you get population decline. So we all know what this is. We know what this looks like. Anyone want to guess where this is? Come on, somebody. Great Falls. All right, sorry. So as far as what do we do right now, we'll continue to evolve. And I'll just want to give you an example. This year, we're starting to work on a product where most of the communities that we've been working in, we found that the town administration or city administration really struggles with the chaos that occurs on Facebook. And while they do put up a good front and say, oh, we don't listen to that, or we do our best to try to, it is devastating to these leaders. Devastating. It sucks away their time. It sucks away their energy. It takes away from their time with their families, from pickleball courts to, criticism of however the city is managed. I know what you guys deal with. We've brought some folks on board, specifically a woman who's going to start working with us that brings some best practices from a county in rural Virginia. And we're going to start working on a product like that this year. So that's one of our objectives this year. But just to be really clear, so what do we do? So we do some strategic planning. We had a concept called Rural SC where we want to do strategic planning that's more integrated. We haven't really piloted that yet. We're doing thought leadership, another whole space that we're working on, is we've got some strategies coming out of West Virginia that can turn around a rural public school system. And all of you know that is much needed here in South Carolina. So we've got strategies that we can bring across the South, adapt for South Carolina, because we've got some really great advantages that we could take advantage of, and really what we want to do this year is we want to partner with a school system and see them flipped from being distressed, actually a school system that's having a positive impact on their community. Digital Workforce 360, that was an innovation that we put together, which is about this whole remote worker thing. We don't really call it remote worker program, but this is what we're going to be presenting on today. So let's talk about remote work. First, I want to just cover definitions. So how do we define remote work? So work from a home to do one's job in one's house and not in an office building. So pretty cool, pretty clear definition. I just want to be really clear. There's been a lot of misconceptions that somehow what we're trying to do is create a bunch of remote jobs in a community and then everyone will have jobs in that community. What we're actually trying to get at here is there is a chance for population growth. People are looking for your community, but they might not be able to find it. That's called information asymmetry. Has anyone used a dating app here? No? All right, there we go, we got one. So the dating apps, what they're designed to do, and whether or not they do it the best way or whatever, but they're designed to solve an information asymmetry problem. That means one side doesn't know about the other side, right? Oh, match. So that's what a dating app does. That's what we're trying to do with this program, and we'll talk about it a little bit more. So this is the work from home trend. This is cumulative hours worked remotely from 1965, not much going on, until a pangolin showed up on the scene, if any of you remember that. Also kind of hung out with the bat, apparently, we were told. no laboratories involved or anything like that, which then really led to coronavirus, which then led to a massive spike in the percentage of business hours worked remotely. Now, what's interesting about this, maybe if you don't remember it because of that, you might remember it because of this. When you slowly, by the time you started using the Scott 1000, you actually considered the CVS receipts as a potential source of toilet paper for your home. So this was a traumatic moment for most of us this whole time period. I still buy like massive things of toilet paper. Well, it is what it is. So let's try to forget about that and focus on what's happened since then. Before about 2022, 2021, we talked about hybrid, and it meant one thing, and then all of a sudden, we're now talking about it meaning something completely different. So hybrid work is where you might work 2 days in the office or 3 days in the office and then work 1 day remotely, 1 day or 2 days remotely or 3 days remotely. It varies based on the company. Hybrid work started about 30%, slowly went down to about 24% by 2024. And I'll tell you, this data is fresh off the presses. I just ran it this past weekend. And right now, full-time remote workers are at about 12%, down from 15%. But honestly, full-time remote workers has actually bumped up a little bit and or stabilized. It's not going down. So most of the droppage is actually on hybrid work. I just real quick, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but this is office space occupancy in major metro areas from COVID, which pre-COVID is 100%, dropping down to nothing almost, 20, 30%, 10%. But if you look here, it's actually kind of flatlined. So like Dallas Metro is one of the best performing areas. It's at 60%. The average is close below 50%. And so what I'm trying to get at is this: remote work's not going anywhere. The real estate occupancy hasn't recovered from this yet. And by the way, this is a $21 trillion boondoggle. And if you want to understand why certain companies are forcing people to come back to work, it's mostly large corporations. And what do large corporations own? Lots of real estate. Okay. Now I'll clear the air on that. I actually found an HR survey that said that 70%, once you get to the large corporates, 30 or 40% of the decision making around whether or not to force people back to the office was related to corporate real estate. So that was from an HR officer. So don't fool yourselves on the hoorah and getting everybody together and chum chum chum. There's other dimensions going on. There's other things going on. So what does that mean? So we saw 24% and 12%. Well, let's do a little math. 168 million people in the US workforce. Times 24%, that's roughly 40 million hybrid workers. Please check my math. I put this together in the middle of the night. And what it means for full-time workers is about 20 million. So that means there's about 60 million people in the US workforce spread across the US that physically don't have to live where they live now, or they can at least have more flexibility. Hybrid workers, what we're seeing is commuting distances are going from, I'll go into the office 90 minutes, twice a week. And so they'll, instead of commuting from the suburbs of Charlotte, they might be all the way out much farther. Maybe here in Hartsville, for example. What do remote workers do? These are the core professions. There's our project in Botetourt County, had a lot of medical workers because there's a big hospital system there. So a lot of those folks actually work some sort of job remotely. I guess that's captured in physical and life sciences. But again, everything from computers all the way to sales. I took this picture this morning. I thought I was just pulling over to take a picture of a broken down gas station because I like to take pictures in rural communities. But do you guys see the possibility and opportunity in this picture? Anyone? Why don't we zoom in a little bit closer? Anyone else see any possibility or opportunity? Yeah, and Jim actually, before he came here, he was actually back there working, rolling some fiber out. So thank you, Jim, for being here today. So remote work is brought to you by the efforts of the folks who are really rolling out. Cedric, you too, sorry. I didn't know you were going to be here, so I practiced my spiel without you. So this is the map. I didn't use that graph that you guys had from that article, but this is a map of broadband coverage in South Carolina. This did not look like this just a few short years ago. Okay, so The opportunity at Bear right now is massive. And one unique thing, and tell me if I get this wrong, I might get it wrong, you'll have to correct me. South Carolina is the only state with better rural broadband than urban broadband at speeds of 100 to 20. Is that, okay, perfect, good. So that's very unique. So this is a very unique opportunity for our rural communities. So what is this translated in? Just to give you guys, this is some data you've probably never seen before. This is the percentage of remote workers by state. And this is full-time remote workers. Remember that 12%. What do you see interesting about this? Special about South Carolina. Now, there's some reasons to explain this, right? So, heavy manufacturing base. Until recently, not a lot of broadband outside of the urban areas. So there's reasons for this. But when I see this, I just see opportunity. If you dig into the county data, which I can give you guys a link to this map, this is like 1 or 2 years old, so but it's still pretty close. Like, here you go, Lee County, 1.5% of your population works remotely. Do you know who that is, Luke? Okay, that's probably Luke. So we really happy we have the mayor of Bishopville here with us this afternoon. Hartsville and Darlington County, 4%, rocking it at 4%. 1.3% for Chesterfield. Did we get anyone to move there yet, Rob, in the last couple of weeks? Not yet. Okay. We met 3 remote workers there in the last couple of days, last couple of weeks during our project. So that's interesting. Florence, you can see a bigger concentration. So that's the opportunity. Now I want to talk about what the economic impact is. So this is a program where they paid up to, and McKinsey, if you're on the line, McKinsey actually is the program manager for this program. McKinsey Coddles is the program manager for this program, and Adam Himber. They work out of Muscle Shoals, Alabama, apparently a great music place. If anyone's has anyone ever been to Muscle Shoals? Leonard Skinner? No? All right. They recruited, and McKinsey, I'm sorry, this is old data, but they recruited 95 remote workers. This was 2 years ago, which actually netted them 200 new citizens. So that's kind of a big deal. They did have to use financial incentives. They were paying up to $10,000 per remote worker. Don't worry, I'm not recommending that for South Carolina. We're going to get to that. But what this means is the average salary for these folks is about $100,000 a year. So that actually means almost $10 million of new payroll coming into that area. So this is not a small deal, right? 55 homes purchased for $14 million, 82% have a bachelor's degree or above, and average age is 42. For South Carolina, this is a nice number, right? Because what do we have? One challenge is, we like retirees, but there's some balance that needs to be had. We need new families too. Some of that program there that Adam and McKinsey ran was tied to this program. And Aaron, if you're on the line, thanks for joining. Aaron Bozel actually helped design this program in Tulsa. Now, they have a nonprofit foundation that has oodles of money, like infinite money, sort of. I think it's billions of dollars. So they can cut checks. And what they did is they basically created a tech scene overnight. They went from a very, very small number of kind of high-tech workforce type folks to these program results are a couple years old, but this was they had about 3,000 remote workers that they recruited to move into their community. Annual payroll, $330 million, state taxes, et cetera, et cetera. One interesting thing that they did a really good job of measuring the development impact. And their estimates were that for every 2 remote workers that moved into the community, it actually created 1 local job. Their estimates were that for every $100,000 salary, it actually meant $30,000 of local spending. So this is a big deal. This is a massive economic impact. It created problems, right? Inflation, house prices went up, et cetera, et cetera. We'll make sure we keep him on mute, please. Thank you. We'll keep Aaron on mute. Another thing, these remote workers are highly likely to start businesses, okay? Or nonprofits, because guess who works remotely for my organization that I used to work for, okay? 1099 consultant. So this then the path led to Botetourt County, okay? And Gary, if you're on the line, hello. Thank you for letting us use the beautiful pictures. And Tiffany, I think you're on the line as well. The county administrator is actually on the line. And we worked with them earlier last year. And they dredged up the fact that they have almost 2,000 remote workers living in their county of 30,000 people. Economic impact, massive. So earlier last year, I got to spend a lot of time interviewing them. Tiffany and I hosted some coffee with them and got to know them a bit. Every profession under the sun. So another point I want to hit on, workforce diversity. So our rough estimate is that of the 2,000, they work for like 800 different employers across a whole bunch. I could show it, that sector distribution I showed you earlier of all the different jobs is the exact same type of distribution that we were seeing there. A little bit variations towards health, but that's the deal. This is and how much did Gary? How much did you pay people to move to Botetourt County? He's not answering. That means zero. He's also on mute. But all right. So then this begs the question: why isn't everybody moving here? You know, Hartsville's beautiful. You guys have done an amazing job. Main Street program, nice hotel, great place to live, great place to raise a family. How come they're not coming? Well, they're looking for you. If you go scan some of the message boards on Facebook, etc., here you go. My husband and I both work remote, so we can live anywhere. Friendly people, good values is what we're looking for. I work remote, so I can live anywhere and be employed. My husband works remote, hoping for a small town, large garden, and a small homestead. And there was somebody asking for an acre for $400,000. I gotta find that person and see if I can sell them an acre for 400 grand. So how are these people finding places to move to? 81% of Americans do their own research, and then about 50% do internet research. But I can pretty much guarantee you that remote workers, probably 90% of them do internet research because they're on the internet all day. What do they find when they do internet research? This is what they think of Sherall. This is not easy to look at, but I think it's an opportunity, right? Which is what we're going to talk about in the next couple of presentations. Hartsville, okay, doing better. But you know these challenges. None of this is new to you. But this is what they find. And I just want to give a quick story. One of our first trips in Hartsville, which then led me to having a chat with Daniel, was going to the Children's Museum there. God bless its soul. That no longer is there, unfortunately. But when we got home, we called my mom, or no, my mother-in-law. Sorry, I call her mom too, so things are good. We called my mother-in-law and told her we went to this beautiful place called Hartsville. We had a good lunch. It was a wonderful experience, just a great time. And, oh, okay, that's great, that's great. Within 5 minutes, she called us back, told us never to go to Hartsville again. It's too dangerous. Don't ever go there again, okay? So she is in her mid-70s. So if somebody in their mid-70s can find out that your place is not a good place to live in like 5 seconds and have that impression, we got to do something, right? There's challenges. There's always going to be challenges. But if people don't move there and if our populations don't grow again, and if we don't stop this nosedive, we're going to be caught holding the bucket. Botetourt County. Now, here's what's kind of funny. Botetourt County gets a B. And you guys have, wait a minute here. What? And how many remote workers do you have in Botetourt County, Gary? 2,000? All right, so Botetourt has some advantages. They're close to Roanoke, so you have all the people who go to AP Fresh, but I guess they're constantly rioting because they want a Trader Joe's, so that's interesting. But they don't have any good nightlife. Do you think you're moving to a rural county and living on 15 acres and you're super stoked about the nightlife? No. So even these type of rating sites, like if anything, that dissuades the people who aren't going to be happy in your community, right? You know, going to Botetourt County for a great nightlife. So what attracted the remote workers to Botetourt? This is what we did a lot of analysis on. They love the rural lifestyle. They like the natural beauty, like the climate. I don't know what we can do about that here, but anyway. Climate's good this time of year. Safety in schools is a big deal. And honestly, our nonprofit's working on some stuff in the whole school area. And we have some examples, like I was mentioning, coming out of West Virginia. But there's a number of you here in this room that are working to try to flip the schools around too and turn them back on a good direction. So I'm excited about that. Close to city amenities. You can't really change that, but good thing is I think Hartsville has enough critical mass, and what's happening in Florence, I think you guys will benefit from as well. But yeah, so that's what's going on. So what do we think about this? Well, look, whenever I use the word economic development in the state of South Carolina, everybody thinks I do industry recruitment. That's a bit difficult for me because I come from international economic development, and it's not all about industry recruitment. But industry recruitment is one of the pillars, and tourism are kind of the two pillars for economic development. And we'd like to propose that there's actually a third pillar for economic development, and that is the idea of recruiting residents. The rough numbers are that there's about 200,000 remote workers in South Carolina. Our estimates are that those individuals bring in at least $20 billion in annual payroll. Last, I think I talked about how one in three, or about a third of people are remote workers. This means that in families, about 1 out of 3 children could possibly even come back to their communities. It means relatives, 1 out of 3, can possibly come back to their communities. It means that former residents, 1 out of 3, could come back to their communities. Thank you, Jim. Thank you to the whole team. What you guys have done is going to have a massive impact on the region. Professionals can bring in their jobs and their high-paying salaries. Remember, $100,000 a year, I'm going to spend about $30,000 a year locally. Unless there's leakage to other surrounding areas, that's a challenge. And households can contribute to the local economy without actually taking away a local job, right? So there's some things there. So with that, I want to call up, we're going to hold questions till the end. We've allotted enough time to be able to answer questions. So with that, I'm going to make sure that our gentlemen who are going to be coming up to share with you, I want to introduce 2 gentlemen, William and Rob. William is in charge of a firm called Timothy Sinclair, and they helped us do the marketing for what we've been working on in Sherrall. And of course, we have the town manager, not city manager. I keep him at town, right? Town manager. So esteemed town manager, Rob Wolf, who will also be sharing with us as well. So let me step off and switch the slides real quick.
I hope you enjoyed the presentation. This was actually the first in a 2-part series recorded on that day. The second part, presented by William Mitchell from Timothy Sinclair and Rob Wolf, the town manager of Sherrall, South Carolina, is available as episode 4 of Talking Rural. In that episode, they dive into strategies for marketing your rural community in a way that attracts new residents and helps retain existing population. Be sure to check it out.